Good evening, everyone. How we doing? We're at session 4 of 5, and tonight we've got a lot of presenters. You have a lot of PowerPoints at your stations, so you're going to be learning a lot. Really excited about this. Our first speaker is going to be David Horn and Lee Hall. They're from Inspectional Services, so they're going to go ahead and talk about what they do, and then we'll have some room for questions. Okay? Perfect. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Hi. So it's really nice to see so many people civically engaged. I have a good friend that told me once, the world is run by those who show up. So good for you guys. I didn't even know there was really a municipality behind the scenes until I actually started to work for the city. So I was pretty naive at the time. My name is Lee Hall. I am the director at Inspectional Services of Health and Housing, and I am here with the building commissioner and our interim commissioner, David Horn. We've both been there a very, very long time. We have one of our associates in the back, Mr. Dan Cahill. He's also been with us a very, very long time. So we have probably almost 80 years, 90 years of experience at Inspectional Services here with us tonight. We are Inspectional Services, and our mission, I'm not going to lie, I took this right off of our brand new website. If people haven't looked at the new website, they should. It's really easy to use, and it's very informative. This mission actually has been edified a little bit, and it's nice and clear and concise. I like it. I'm going to read it right off the paper. The Inspectional Services Department strives to deliver the most efficient and transparent permitting and inspection process possible to the city. We aim to ensure that the housing, rental properties, and businesses are the healthiest and safest in the Commonwealth. So this is our building, 25 Mead Street. I'm not sure if people know where we are. We're down by the Woosocks, Kelly Square. We've been there for a long time. A lot of people here might remember us as Health and Code. We were Health and Code for a long time. We've been through a lot of transitions. We're now Inspectional Services, but in essence, we're still doing everything that we always did before. We perform a myriad of inspectional services or regulatory and inspections that are required by law throughout the city every day. Most of you, actually all of you, probably go through your day not realizing that what we're doing behind the scenes is affecting you. So I'm going to explain a little bit about the different divisions. But first, let me just tell you that we're not the only department down at 25 Mead Street. We share our building with fire prevention. Can you hear me? With fire prevention. They are there. They also do inspections and reviews. And we have the Department of Public Health in our building. We do have the most real estate in the building. And so let me tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. So we have two divisions. We have the Building and Zoning Division on one side and then Health and Housing on the other side. The building division is comprised of buildings, the plumbing division, gas and plumbing division, electrical division, zoning. We do regulatory inspections and we do enforcement. So the the building department, probably most of you are aware. So they review all the permit applications. Anytime you want to build, renovate, do reconstruction, demolition, you open up a new building, you have to have a permit and you have to have all the inspections that are required. The same thing happens with electrical, wiring, plumbing, gas. They have a mechanical division. Well, it's really plumbing, but all the HVAC, those are all like sheet metal work. Those all require permits. Change of use permits. We do zoning determinations. They're working really hard. Demolitions, they're also looking at all that stuff, and there's a review process, so we have great clerical staff, but the building department has to review a lot of those permits. We have a great new open gov system, permitting platform. If you've been on the website, or if you pulled any permits, you would know about that. And we also, Health and Housing, as well as Building and Zoning, respond to all kinds of complaints. So if there's a fire, the building department is going to be called in. If there's a gas leak, the plumbing department will be called in. If a building hits a truck hits a building, the building department will be called in. So they're very busy. We're really busy all over the city every day. And then there's Housing and Health. So the Housing and Health Department is what I oversee. And we have 4 different divisions. We have the Housing Division, we have the Food Division, we have Air, Water, and Hazardous Materials Division, and then we have Weights and Measures, which is more of a consumer protection division. So food does, obviously, they inspect all the restaurants. They investigate foodborne illnesses. They are reviewing and permitting for all the public events with food might be present, temporary food permits. They also inspect all the tanning salons and the tattoo parlors. They're pretty busy. Air, water, and hazardous materials. They're permitting campgrounds, pools and semi-public pools, beaches. They do inspecting and permitting the RDNA labs. They're investigating complaints of asbestos, any kind of odor, noise, or hazardous material complaints, like dust, if someone's construction site might be raising a lot of dust, things like that. So they're investigating all of that. Weights and measures. They are calibrating all the weights and measures throughout the city. So if you go to CVS and there's a pill counter, they've calibrated. The deli scales, the gas tank, gas pumps at the gas stations. They are reinstituting our taxi meters. That program actually disappeared for a while, and we're starting that one again. We lost a lot of when COVID hit, and then when Uber started. So we're reinvigorating that program. But we're busy all over the city. We can't even count all the scales that we're supposed to be calibrating. So that's a pretty busy division. They check things like octane in the gas. We just had a recent complaint that there was not enough octane in the gas, so it was been watered down. So we're busy with that. And then, of course, housing, that's where I've been for the last 25 years pretty much. And we are enforcing the state sanitary code, the minimum standards for human fitness, and all the local nuisance ordinances. It's a big division. Let me see, let me give you an overview here. Okay, overview. 46 failed inspectors, but that's the whole department. So I have 17 in the housing division. We've permits this year, more than 12,850 permits issued, and we've had over 11,000 permit inspections to get, related to all of that. And that's just the first 3 quarters of the year. And then the work orders, those are complaints that are received. So we've had over 13,000 this year and 17,000 inspections. Some of those are building complaints, plumbing complaints, but the majority of them are complaints for nuisance violations and housing code. So very, very busy ordinance division, the housing division. We've been previously very reactive. Get the complaint, go do the inspection, write the order. And with the initiation of the rental registry, we aim to be more proactive. So we want to have better contact with landlords, and we want to take stock of what we have, housing stock in the city of Worcester. We want to see the condition it's in, make sure that it meets the minimum standard. Because when we talk about the state sanitary code, that's what it is. It's the minimum standard. And so with that, I'm going to leave you with Dave Horn to fill you in a little bit more about the rental registry. Yeah, I just have a contact. 311. Does everybody know about 311? If you have any complaint or concern in the city, housing related, building code related, anything really, you can call just 311 and you will get our customer service response team. They're really great, and they will send your complaint where it needs to go. And if it has to come to us, they will find us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you to the mayor and the mayor's staff for having us tonight. My name is David Horn. I'm the building commissioner with the city of Worcester, as Lee indicated. Lee is my partner over here that's very helpful to me. Lee, you did a nice job. I'm here tonight to give you, yes. Thank you. I'll speak up. Thank you very much. What part didn't you hear? My name is David Horn, and I'm the building commissioner. So we're gonna go over the rental registry and kind of give you an overview of what that is and how that's helping the community and inspectional services as a whole. As you can see here, we're going to be talking about the registration, scheduling, and inspection. For just a quick overview, we're going to be talking about what it is, who it applies to, why we're doing it, what information is needed, and what benefits. What are the benefits and the cost associated to it? Basically, what it is, the rental registry within the city of Worcester provides inspectional service with an accurate update of contact information, emails, phone numbers. I can't tell you how critical this is for the city to be able to have a registry so we can find people's addresses and phone numbers and emails when it comes to what we do in this department, which is a lot of complaints. Believe it or not, that's the brunt of the work for the housing division, and I can't tell you how just being able to look that up and having all that information in one place so we can reach out to the public and be able to get a hold of them much easier than we've been done in the past. Why are we doing this? The information as I just said, in the event of an emergency or related issues on that property, it just allows us to be able to communicate more effectively. Who does this apply to? The rental registry applies to any property in the city that is rented, no matter the use or the duration of the rental. It pretty much covers any property that is for rent, hire, or lease. The cost to the rental registry, first-time rental is $15 per unit. If you have a three-decker, it's $150. That's for the first initial registration. Every renewal after that is a $5 fee, which obviously has reduced two-thirds annually every year thereafter. Information that we're looking for when you register on the registry: address, property, construction type, the use of the building, the number of units in the building, mailing address, phone numbers, email property managers. If you own property in the city and you're over 60 miles away, we do ask that you have a property manager within that 60 miles so we can have somebody respond to that property. I can't tell you how difficult it is when there's a problem and a big fire on a property and you're 250 miles away, how difficult that is for us to manage that. So this is part of the rental registry, one of the implementations that I hope will prove to work better for the city. Some of the benefits with the rental registry: provides an opportunity to correct problems that you may have. The inspector can go out, pick up the phone, get an email, call you up and tell you there's a problem at your house, and it just seems to work better. I can't tell you how many times when we would normally just send out an order of correction, wait for a person to get a hold of us, and they'd say to us, well, how come you didn't just call me? So this is proving to work much better for Director Hall's inspectors and my inspectors. We'd much prefer just to give you a call and say, look, there's a problem on the property. Do you think we could address it? The other benefit to this information, getting all the emails and the correct emails of people, is we're going to be able to utilize to send out, we can now send an email blast out to people, landlords in the city. Maybe there's code changes. We're in the middle of a code change. We're going to the 10th edition building code. We're always changing the energy code, for instance. That changes so much, almost every few years is another energy change. We can provide those changes much more effectively by just sending it out to good emails to these landlords and property owners. This next few slides, we're going to talk about scheduling inspections and how that kind of works for the landlord and the tenant. Just a quick overview. We're going to talk about what's inspected, how often the inspections are, who schedules the inspections, what are the fees, how to get ready, and when does this start. What's inspected? We're going to be inspecting the whole property, including the units themselves and any portion of that building. Accessory structures that may be on site, we'll be looking at those. But the basic, we'll be looking at everything, all the components to that building: attics, basements, hallways, egress, units themselves, all spaces within the individual units. So everything gets included during that inspection. Frequency of the inspection. So this under the everything that we do is under building code or the sanitary code, CMR 780 and the CMR 105 under the sanitary code. We are going to do these inspections and hope to get people certified. We'll be issuing certificates of compliance, and they'll be good for 5 years. That being said, it doesn't mean that we won't be back on your property within that 5 years. If there is a complaint, we will surely be back. Complaints come in all the time, landlords, neighbors, people call up and complain about property. So we may be back in there doing a complaint, but we won't be back in there looking at as thorough of an inspection as we're doing during this type of inspection. As I said before, and I'll just reiterate, the two pertinent codes that apply here for Director Hall and myself is the Massachusetts Sanitary Code, CMR 105, Section 410, and the Massachusetts State Building Code, CMR 780, Section 110. Those two codes represent everything that we do in terms of rental properties and what we refer to as our guide for compliance. Who schedules the inspections? Based on information provided in the registration, property owners will receive an email. We're going to send out, when we go live with this, which is coming soon, don't hold me to any dates, but we're looking at May, middle of May. A lot of pieces we're putting together and a lot of departments integrated to help us put this out so we can begin. The registry is actually in effect. It's the scheduling inspection piece that we're looking to do. So we're going to be, when we do begin to do this, we're going to try and go into neighborhoods that, and we're going to try and take a big area. We're not going to bounce around the city. We want to try and focus on tracts of housing development. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, I think, as I continue here. Scheduling, what does it cost? Inspections, a separate fee. They're $50 per unit. Missed inspections, we're going to give you one pass on a missed inspection, but any re-inspection, subsequent inspections, they will be a $100 fee. So $50 per unit. When does this start? We are intending to start this very soon. I'm pushing people on my end that are helping me to implement this. I've got, like I said before, I've got a lot of other departments in the city that have worked very hard putting this all together behind the scenes. The technology piece of this is a lot of work involved, as you can only imagine. We'll be looking at buildings. I started to elaborate on where we're going to be. People want to know where we're going to go in the city. We're looking primarily in the beginning of this to get this going, multifamilies, 3+ units. So we're going to be focusing on any area of the city, the 7 hills that have a high density of 3 families. We will be going to be looking at those neighborhoods for, where's the most violations and some of the worst case scenarios. Some neighborhoods aren't as nice as others, and we really want to try and get into those neighborhoods first and see what some of these buildings look like. Some of these 3-deckers haven't been inspected as well as they should have been or should be under the CMR 780. So this whole program is going to help us to get in to these 3 families that are very hard to get into when you can't get a hold of landlords. Being prepared. This is something that Director Hall and I talk a lot about. We do have a handbook, and I can see that some of you have that. This is a great tool. Creating this, I think, has been a great thing for this because, and people have asked us too to divide it up and have one for the tenant and one for the landlord, but we've kept it together because we really want everybody to have the same information. I don't want the landlord to have the tenant and the tenant to have the landlord. We don't want any confusion. This has a lot of information in it, and there's guidance in there to do some of the things that, and we're going to discuss it as I move on here, things that the landlord and the tenant can do here to prepare themselves for this inspection. This is not a surprise inspection. You're going to have plenty of time. You're going to know we're coming, so we're going to be looking to see that you're prepared. Some of the benefits to this rental registry: public safety, number one. This is really all about public safety. We want to make sure these buildings are safe. We have struggled for years looking at multifamily buildings with illegal apartments. It's a big deal. my department and Director's Hall department, we're constantly investigating these and trying to follow up and get them removed or get them legalized or what have you. But it's a big deal because it puts fire department at risk with these types of buildings in terms of there's not supposed to be a basement apartment down there and there's a fire in the building and nobody knows there's anybody down there. That could be a problem. So a couple of other things. This is also a pathway for compliant property it's great for marketing. You're a landlord, you got a certificate of inspection. It's good for 5 years. It's great when you're trying to market your own property in terms of rental. Okay, we're moving to tenant and landlord responsibilities. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview. We'll talk about tenant responsibilities. I'm not going to read every single one of these. I've highlighted a couple here that I would read. Keeping your unit clean. This is for the tenant. Keeping your unit clean, sanitary, and safe is a priority. That's a big deal and a major focus for our housing inspectors on a daily basis. Removing trash, from the hallways and follow the rules for disposing and recycling and knowing when to put it on the curb is a big deal. We constantly having to reiterate to people what those rules are. Secure your belongings. As you can see here, there's definitely a lot of responsibility for the tenant as well. And a little bit more here. Temporary wiring. Some of the problems that we see when we go into these places, temporary wiring can be a problem in these houses with starting fires, overloading circuits with power strip cords, tampering with smoke and carbon monoxide detection is a major problem. So these are some of the things that the tenant needs to understand. So we provided that in the handbook so the tenants understand, some of the things that really falls onto their responsibility to try and help the landlord keep these buildings safe. Landlord responsibilities. They have a lot of responsibility too. We expect them to keep the building clean, all the egress and ingress into the building, the common spaces, expect those to be clean. We look to the landlord to make sure getting their required inspections, registering their property, understanding what they need to do with their tenants during emergencies and catastrophic events, maintaining proper levels of homeowners insurance for major events that take place. And that looks like I've ended. So with that, any questions? I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We have time for a couple of questions.
Sure. Go ahead, ma'am. Yes, if your in-laws are living over your garage, you can turn that into a, so that's a good question, just number one first, because there's a lot going on in that question. So you can turn that garage unit into an ADU dwelling. It is permitted and permittable. With that being said, it does become a two-family. And yeah, it does become a two-family. Some of these will be exempt under the exemption under the rental registry in terms of owner-occupied dwellings. Two families aren't a big issue with us in inspectional services so much as some of the multifamilies, but to answer your question, the ADU is a huge turn for the city, in my opinion, in terms of allowing people to have additional units added to their homes. So, any other questions? Sir, go ahead.
Because the CMR 780, what year was it? Was that posted?
Did you ask the year?
Yeah.
So currently we're in CMR 780. Actually, we're in the 2021 IBC and IRC building codes. We have just adopted the 10th edition building code. So moving forward, that's where we're living right now, but there's a lot of projects that are under the 9th edition, so we're kind of back and forth. But yes, we're in the 2021 building codes.
Okay, the reason I asked the question is that the building code.
So that's an existing dwelling you're talking about? So there's a separate codes just for existing buildings that one would have to refer to specifically for any changes in that building. Nobody expects an existing building like this, 3 families, multifamilies like we have that are 1900s criteria to meet today's code, except for things of life safety. In terms of smoke detector, carbon monoxide detection, fire alarms, sprinkler systems, things like that aren't necessarily exempt from having to comply with some of the new codes today, but it's case by case. Yes, sir. It's the landlord's responsibility to maintain these properties. Our inspection, when we go in and do these types of inspections, we have to use a little bit of judgment and common sense too. So we're not going in and looking at things just to pick on somebody. It has to be clean and sanitary and clean, but we understand. We've been doing this, all of us that work for ISD and even the new people that work for us, we spend a lot of time, Lee and I do a lot of training. There will be instances that we're in there and we're seeing major structural failure to a building. I mean, that could be a very costly endeavor. Illegal apartments can be very costly, especially if you can't, well, number one, if it's illegal and never been approved, you need to get it approved. That could be costly. And then if it can't be approved and needs to be removed, that could be costly. Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just going to ask, does all this also include safety? Because, and when I say safety, I don't mean safety in terms of like...
So we're definitely going to look at the minimum standards to the state sanitary code, and within the sanitary code, which comes out of the public health code, is regulations for pools. So certainly if there's a pool on the property, we're going to look at it. We're going to make sure it's got a fence and a gate. We're going to make sure the locks are proper on the buildings. We'll look at all of that stuff. And to further answer the question for the gentleman to your left, as Dave said, we're not looking for gotcha moments. People have known we've had the rental registry for a year. We haven't even started scheduling. It's been a year. That landlord guide came out a year ago. People will be prepared. They're going to get lots of time to be prepared, to let their tenants be prepared. And quite frankly, I think people are raising their rents just because they have 2 or 3 bedrooms, and a lot of them don't meet code now. So if they're going to raise their rents, they're probably going to do it anyways. If they do spend a substantial amount, probably, they'll raise their rents to cover some of that cost. But I don't see a huge change just because we have the rental registry and making rents out of reach for the residents of the city. It's probably will happen, but it's happening anyways. And I would prefer to know that all of these apartments are safe and healthy than not get into them and see them. Because I see apartments that are $2,000 that I wouldn't live in, a month. So that's the purpose, for health and safety. That's what we do. That's the name of our game.
And on that note, we'll give a nice, healthy, safe round of applause for our presenters.
So while Eliane is pulling up a video, I have the privilege of introducing the Quality of Life team. This is an interdepartmental team with people from the city manager's office, the Worcester Police Department, and inspectional services. And basically, when there's a problem in the city, they're the first person I call because they take care of everything from trash, problem properties. They help people get services who are unhoused, and they do really, really great, meaningful work. So I am so happy to introduce the director of Quality of Life team, Dan Cahill. And Angel is coming up too. He's the police officer who works for Quality of Life, and they all work together and do a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Well, I think we just shaved about 5 minutes off our presentation with Jenny's introduction, so thank you for that. As she mentioned, I'm Dan Cahill, Director of Quality of Life for the City of Worcester, and with me is Officer Angel Rivera from the Crisis Intervention Team and Quality of Life. So what we're going to do tonight is kind of give you guys a lot of information. We're going to touch on everything we do. So we're going to start with Officer Rivera talking about crisis intervention training and crisis intervention, how we would go about using it as well. And then I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Quality of Life team, and then we're going to talk about how we use them together and then touch upon the neighborhood first model for the city, and then show a brief video, and then hopefully we've given you guys enough information to ask some good questions. So take it away, Angel.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, everyone. I'm Angel Rivera. I've been with the Worcester Police Department for approximately 20 years now. Go to our first slide. The police department started that crisis intervention team. What is the crisis intervention team? So back in 1988, out in Memphis, they started a group of individuals from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And what occurred was a call occurred where an individual who was suffering from a crisis at the moment was shot and killed. And they wanted to better prepare officers on how to respond to mental health-related calls for service. Back in 2015, we started ours in our police department. And it's a pre-arrest jail diversion program, and it's a partnership with our mental health care in our community. So what does that consist of? You know, what is it that we're looking for in training these officers? This is just a synopsis of what we train our police officers. When we go through our police academy, we do have mental health training, but this is more in depth. This is a 40-hour training that we get a guideline through the Department of Mental Health. And who trains us? We have our community partnerships that we work with who come out, who are experts in the field, and train us on how to respond to mental health-related calls for service. Substance misuse, opioid epidemic, people overdosing. How do you respond to those type of calls? How do you connect those individuals to services, right? Cultural awareness, suicide prevention, individuals who have a traumatic brain injury. Biggest thing is de-escalation, right? How do we de-escalate somebody? One of the things that we've learned on de-escalating somebody is to be able to validate that individual. We're going to validate that individual who they are. We're going to be able to provide options. What do you think is best for you? This is what's worked before for somebody else, but not necessarily may work for you. And then at the end, allow the person to choose what's best for them, right? So we're not going to say, you're going to go to this hospital because you just overdosed. Which hospital would you rather go to? Would you rather go to St. Vincent? Would you rather go to UMass? Or how about they don't want to go to the hospital? They want to go into something that's a little bit smaller. They don't want to sit in the emergency room. How about Community Health Link? You can go to Community Health Link. It's a little bit smaller. It's not a long waiting period of time. We can get you into treatment. They can provide additional services. So knowing how to be able to connect that individual and not just take a report and have the person just go to the hospital. How do we continue to provide that service to that individual? And at the end, they have to take a certification exam. So what are our goals for CIT? The biggest thing is to divert individuals from the criminal justice system. We also don't want to inundate our hospitals over and over again, having these individuals continue to go to the hospital. We want to be able to say there are other options. You can go to the Family Health Center. You can go to the Gregory Valley Health Center. There are different other options. The city is known to be like the epic center of resources that we can divert individuals to. All right.
Good.
So what have we done in the Worcester Police Department? As you can see, as of February, we've trained not just our department. We work with, I'm the liaison with Open Sky Community Services, where we provide CIT trainings to other police departments, Shrewsbury, Webster, all the way to Ashburnham, Ashby, Berlin, those other towns. Because we're a large city. We have a lot of individuals that come from other communities as well. So we want to be able to provide and prepare those other police departments on how to respond to those calls for service and how to be able to assist those individuals in those other communities as well. So that's just a brief sort of numbers for some statistics that we have of individuals that we've trained in other departments. The biggest thing for our model is to build community partnerships. We have to build community partnerships. Being able to have that resource, being able to be knowledgeable on how to connect somebody. If we go to a residential house and the person is about to get evicted, how can we connect that individual to Central Mass Housing prior to that eviction? RCAP solutions. Maybe some other resources that are out there. Call 311 and see what other resources are out there. 211, which is the statewide number that you can call prior to that happening. If someone who's an elder and they're going through a crisis, they live alone, they don't know how to sort of manage their finances, we can get elder protective services involved, elder services involved. If there are children involved, right? How do we connect those children to the Department of Children and Families so that that family can also be supported and get resources as well? And I will pass this to Dan.
Thank you very much. So Jenny kind of gave a brief description of what the Quality of Life team is. It is an interdepartmental team made up of members of the Worcester Police Department, Inspectional Services Department, Department of Public Works, and we work very closely with the homeless outreach team out of Health and Human Services. We were established in 2015. It was supposed to be a 90-day pilot program. Here we are almost 10 years later, and under the leadership of City Manager Batista, we have grown exponentially. We started off with having one police officer, one inspectional services member, which was myself. As Lee and Dave mentioned, I'd worked there for about 18 years, and prior to the past 2 years, taking the position under the city manager's office, and one member of the Department of Public Works. City Manager Batista has seen the need for this program or this team, and he's, now we have 3 police officers, 4 Department of Public Works workers, and 2 inspectional services people. So we rapidly respond and proactively patrol the city for many different things, whether it's unsheltered sites or the unsheltered population hanging out in businesses, trash on the side of the road, illegal dumping, vacant problem properties, pick up needles. We get all the needle complaints basically from 311, and we handle them, and we go pick those up. As well as illegal chop shops and other things like other police-related issues. With regards to the homeless outreach, our mission is to connect the individuals to services first and foremost. So we get complaints. We're not going around walking in the woods or anything like that. When a complaint comes into 311 and we get that complaint, we obviously have to go address it for the residents and the constituents who are concerned with the individuals, or they may not want a tent there or whatever it may be. But our goal is to connect the individuals to services, whatever they may need, whether it's substance use help, mental health help, or if it's just someone's down in their luck, they lost their house or they lost their apartment, they got priced out, and they don't have no place to go, so we come in and try to see what we can do to help them. We bring the outreach to the individuals in need. Twice a week, the homeless outreach team goes out with partner agencies. That's on top of what we do on a daily basis with the complaints that we're getting and trying to connect these individuals to services. So 2 times a week dedicated with the homeless outreach team and partner agencies, but also nonstop throughout the week we're addressing issues as well. We go out with clinicians, recovery coaches, ER doctors, shelter providers, substance use treatment specialists, veteran services, as well as housing specialists, case managers. That comes out and accompanies a team. So Angel kind of touched upon some of these issues on his last slide, but our outreach response, what do we do? So crisis intervention, mental health evaluations when available. We do have clinicians available to us to try to see what's going on with these individuals. Proper referrals, he mentioned in DCF, 51As, and Elder Protective Services. This isn't only a homeless issue either. Angel mentioned, if we go to a property and there's an elderly person there and has some situation going on, we contact Elder Protective Services, or we're mandated reporters. We have to let people know what's going on. Homeless prevention, eviction process, connected to social services. Angel mentioned that as well. Again, but we can also go to, if we're out at St. John's Soup Kitchen and someone comes up to us and says, hey, I'm about to get evicted, is there anything you can do for us? Absolutely. We can try to connect you guys to the proper chain. Connect people to peer support, recovery coaches, This is one of the biggest things right now that help us out because, we may not be subject matter experts or we don't have lived experiences, but we have access to recovery coaches who go out on a daily basis with us, and they've lived it. And they try to help these individuals, and if the individuals can see, hey, I'm down on my luck, this person was as well, maybe they can help me try to turn the corner. And it works. It does work. We're liaisons to local shelters, Queen Street, MLK, the RMV overflow. So that's the first question we always ask. Are you working with anyone? Are you interested in any kind of shelter? And that's, the first question after we introduce ourselves and things like that. So we try to get people into the shelters any way we can. If someone's been kicked out of the shelter, we have the connections at SMOC to call up and say, hey, when is this person allowed back in? And any way you can help them out? And, more often than not, that happens as well. And then the Hub Core, that's every Tuesday, the city agencies and partner agencies meet, and we kind of go over, critical incidences in what we can do to try to help these individuals. It's not just the homeless population. It could be a kid who's truant from school or an individual who has an alcohol problem and he's, not showing up. There's many different ways we work with the Hub Core. Here's just a couple of sites that we've taken from the past, under a railroad bridge. The top middle is actually someone living under in between. It's like a bridge. And there was a big drop below, and it was kind of a scary scene. Then obviously under the railroad track, and then some of the items that you guys see that we see on a regular basis at these sites. So collaboration with agencies. I think we talked about a lot of these: Community Health Link, Elder Protective Services, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Children and Families. I can't tell you how many times we've encountered children living in a tent or in an RV, and trying to get them. We have to contact, obviously, DCF and see what they can do for the people. Juvenile probation, UMass Emergency Mental Health, drug court. That's very big right now. We go there. We have a representative from Health and Human Services who goes to drug court, I think daily now at this point, to be honest with you. And they're given an opportunity as a jail diversion to seek treatment. And that's been very successful right now for us. No, that's different. We have Section 35 people as well. So Section 35 is when a family member, correct, Angel, or even the police department can try to go in and get someone into treatment. Angel can touch on that a little bit more. But
So Section 35 is obtained through the court. It can be a family member, a police officer, court official, for those individuals who are in extreme elevated risk of life or death. And then the judge will issue a temporary warrant where we pick up the individual, bring them directly to the court where they get evaluated by a court clinician. Depending on what occurs within the court system, they can be sent to a court-ordered facility for treatment.
And we actually just assisted with a Section 35 not too long ago with an individual, and his family reached out to us, and we got the person into a treatment facility, so hope he's still doing well.
And usually, the good thing about the 35s when we're involved, the individual is not brought to the police station. They're brought right to the courthouse, so they can get that evaluation. So that if the process for them is to go into a treatment program, it's smoothly.
All right, moving on to the some of the other duties that we have. So we've come up with a neighborhood first model, and you're gonna see a video at the end of this brief video, kind of tying everything together. But our main goal is to build relationships, assess situations, and enforce when necessary. So relationships, we go to many neighborhood meetings, business association meetings, and we want to hear from the residents in something like this as well. What is going on? What's happening in the neighborhood? We want to know what's happening in the neighborhood and the concerns that you guys have. So that's trying to building relationships. We'll stop at businesses sometimes if we know that there's been issues in the neighborhood of illegal dumping or unsheltered people sleeping in the middle of their doorways, and just seeing what they're seeing and what we can do to help. So build those relationships is absolutely essential. Regional assignments. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 4 DPW nuisance inspectors, and they're each assigned to one quarter of the city. So northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. and they're proactively going in and out of every neighborhood. The goal is to hit every street in every neighborhood, and they're looking for bulk items on the side of the road, illegally dumped items, high litter areas, and trying to address those needs as necessary. Addressing illegal dumping as well, as I mentioned, and 311 complaints. I can't stress how important calling 311 is for you guys as well. You're our eyes and ears out there on the street as well. We're out there as much as we can, but sometimes things get missed. So 311 is a huge asset to have. You call that up, you give a complaint, they give you a number, and you can track the progress of what's going on in the neighborhoods. So if there's you saw a couch on the side of the road somewhere, call it into 311, they'll give you a customer service request number, and then you can follow that along. Obviously, they'll dispatch it to the proper channel, and sometimes it's us, sometimes it's Lee and Dave's team, sometimes it's Public Works, whatever it may be. We can go out there and monitor what's going on and try to rectify that for you guys. Overweight yellow bags. So I don't know if you guys, I don't know if any of you guys have been hit with a ticket yet or anything like that, but sometimes these bags are a little heavy. There's too much trash in them. The sanitation workers, they don't want to get injured. DPW is short on people right now. We don't want to get any injuries, so we'll go over there to, weigh it, make sure it's under 30 pounds in the 30-gallon bags or 15 in the 15-gallon. And we don't give you a fine right away, but we'll give you a warning first, and then we'll go from there. Bulk items on public way, and obviously enforcing, as Dave and Lee talked about earlier, the state sanitary code and nuisance ordinances. And now we want to show you guys a brief video. Didn't work on our slideshow, so we have to. Oh, perfect. Our vision involves strengthening community partnerships, expanding outreach efforts, and implementing innovative strategies to create neighborhoods that are not only safe, but welcoming and thriving. I am Dan Cahill, Director of Quality of Life for the City of Worcester. So the Quality of Life Task Force is an interdepartmental team made up of members of the Worcester Police, Department of Inspectional Services, Department of Public Works, as well as our homeless outreach team. We handle such issues in the city as homelessness, trash, illegal dumping, vacant unsecured properties, unregistered vehicles on the street, other police issues, as well as needle removal. So the Quality of Life Task Force began back in 2015. We had 3 members originally. Under the leadership of City Manager Batista, the team is growing substantially. We have 4 nuisance inspectors from the Department of Public Works, 4 Worcester Police Department officers, 2 inspectional service members, as well as a growing homeless outreach team out of Health and Human Services. I've been attending neighborhood meetings the last 18 years. The relationships that you build and the collaboration that is there between residents, community members, partner agencies, Worcester Police, it's huge, and they continue to help us find effective solutions to help better our neighborhoods.
But I just want to know moving forward, because we've had a lot of increased activity in the neighborhood, and I just want us to talk a little bit about that.
Chris has been in contact with me quite a bit recently about the uptick in people that are.
I appreciate the help that the Quality of Life provides. We can call on them to help with service in our communities. They're very much active in our community to make things happen.
You have people that think outside the box, and they're willing to help and give people the encouragement and hope that they need, that it can change.
Definitely an extra set of eyes out for the city, whether it be police, inspectional services, or the Quality of Life. These individuals are essential for our city's success.
Right now, as we're walking around, keep an eye for needles and things like that. So we want to make sure that this ground is pristine, especially for the kids that come in here to play. Doesn't look too bad today because the ambassadors are here too. To remove some trash.
So we just found a needle here outside of Crompton Park. What we do here on a regular basis is come in, try to do what we call a needle sweep, of looking for needles, especially in park areas where kids might congregate to play. Do our best to get rid of as many as we can find. And also while we're here, we have our homeless outreach teams providing some outreach. So Crompton Park's one that we hit regularly, as well as Castle Park, and that's pretty much a daily basis.
Thank you, Phil.
Our main goal for the homeless population is assisting them and connecting them to services. With regards to trash and issues like that, we try to educate individuals and let them know that we can't illegally dump items. We have drop-off centers, the yellow bag programs, recycling programs, and things like that. The Quality of Life team was involved in a neighborhood cleanup under the City Manager's Clean Team initiative. We picked up close to 50 bags of loose litter and also did some light landscaping in the area. Weed whacked some tree beds and picked up that debris as well. We stay informed about emerging trends, conduct outreach, and adjust our strategies to effectively address new challenges. And we're going to continue to work hard for the city. One more thing I'd like to say. One of the other things that just started recently is a Clean Streets Collective. We're partnering with Miranda Hotham from Zero Waste. She's a Zero Waste coordinator out of the Department of Sustainability and Resilience. And this is one of the ideas we've actually got from neighborhood meetings quite frequently. Everyone asks what they can do to try to assist in picking up litter in the neighborhood. So we're providing bags to residents. I think we have 17 so far signed up. That was the last I checked. And they're removing litter only in the neighborhood. And they put it with their yellow bags on collection day. So that's another thing that's just started the last couple weeks. But I wanted to mention that as well. And with that, do we have any questions?
We have time for 2 questions.
Sorry, I went over a little bit. One in the back and then you. Miss, yeah? So we attend several of these meetings. So they're already scheduled throughout the city. They're on the website. They are on the city website. But we try to get to as many as we can. I'm actually have one tonight at 7. I don't know if I'm going to make it or not, but and it's a lot of the local residents for that area in particular. So, they have like Main South Beacon Brightly, that's down at the Main Street YMCA. They have one that I go to quite frequently at the Pleasant Neighborhood Network Center. We have the one tonight is at Brown Square Civic Club. So they're all over the city. And if you find the one in your area, they're always looking for more people, so that would be great. But police attend, inspectional services attend, and quality of life attend. Yes. We collect, so we have data, everything like for the trash, and for instance, goes through customer service requests. So we pull that data basically weekly. And that keeps track of, what kind of items, how many tonnage of trash, things like that. With regards to the individuals that we encounter on a daily basis, we document those as well. And we do. We have our homeless outreach team, which isn't supposed to be case managers, really do turn into case managers. So they follow through with people from beginning till end and even after. So if we get a person housed, and they keep track of that data. Obviously, a lot of that is confidential. We can't, tell people's names and things like that for violations, but we do keep track of everything. They have a list in certain databases that they track, and they make notes on a regular basis. And we do see what we need. Like, for instance, if you need more recovery coaches, we're seeing a trend in, overdoses. What can we do to get that out? The drug court situation. So that information does get tracked and addressed as needed in what we do need. So what the funding can go to what area.
Last
Yes,
question.
It would depend on where it is exactly in the park. And I know exactly the one you're talking about. So we have worked with Greater Worcester Land Trust in the past, and we have worked with the Parks Department in the past. Because, as I mentioned, our main goal is to, connect the individuals to services and get them the help that they need, whatever it may be. Unfortunately, oftentimes individuals may leave the site. They don't want any help. They don't want to deal with us anymore. They leave the site, there's a lot of trash that remains there. And so that trash needs to get picked up and cleared away. So we try to work with whoever it is, property owner, Parks Department, whoever it may be, to get that area cleaned up for the residents to be able to enjoy again.
So if a citizen wants to report it, would they start with your team first?
I would absolutely call 311 and let them know. We are aware of a couple sites that are up there, and we are working on trying to get those individuals placed. And there are a couple of vacant sites that just need to be cleaned up as well. So we are aware of what's going on at Green Hill.
All right. How about a quality round of applause for Dan Cahill and Officer Rivera?
And of course, we don't want to leave any unanswered questions. So if you do have a question, you can send them over
Yeah,
to
you can
you,
send it
and
over to
then
me.
we can answer any questions, any additional questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. You've got 10 minutes to wiggle your legs, stretch, have a cookie. There's beverages, pizza.
Welcome back, everyone. Once again, my name is Joe O'Brien. I had a chance to meet many of you the first session and the second session. I want to start just by a quick word of thanks to all of you for being here for tonight. So amazing to see so many people are so dedicated. Do I really need this? I don't know. Okay. So excited to see all of you back, and this is such an incredible program. And just want to say, I think you should all give yourselves a big round of applause for all the great work you're doing here and being here tonight. I have the real pleasure of getting to introduce our next guest. And as a little quick background on that, in my current job, I get to travel all around the Northeast and get to talk to mayors and local elected officials about a lot of issues. But inevitably, I get an opportunity to talk about how great our city is and the incredible history here in the city of Worcester, like the Levi Lincoln Room. I don't know if anyone got a chance before you go tonight. If you haven't read about Levi Lincoln, on the little plaque tells you all about one of our city's great leaders who also led the effort to create the first public park in America, as well as being the city's first mayor, another fabulous role he played. So there's great history here. But just as important, I love talking about the amazing things that are happening here in Worcester today and the incredible work that's being done to make Worcester one of the greenest, healthiest, and most sustainable cities in the country. There is incredible work being done in this city to really make an incredibly sustainable city. And some of it you don't see, but there is so much great work happening. And that's in large part because of your next speaker, John Odell, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer, who's been leading the charge now for how many years?
I've been here 16.
16, right. So, and at least the last 10 or so kind of leading the charge on the incredible work around sustainability. So let's give a big warm welcome for John, and can't wait to hear what he's going to talk about.
Thank you, Joe. That was very kind, very generous, somewhat fictional, but very much appreciated it. I have only 234 slides to get through in the next 20 minutes, so it shouldn't be a problem. As you know, I'm here to talk about Green Worcester. There are two basic things I want to give an overview for. The first is our Green Worcester plan, which was officially took place and finalized in 2021. We actually had it written in 2020, but it got endorsed by the council in 2021. And then our Zero Waste Master Plan, which is ongoing as we speak. Just having a nice conversation with Dan Cahill just now, talking about how some of the work that they do is actually showing up in some of the work that we're doing in part of this Zero Waste Plan. So it all connects, I guess, is maybe the takeaway from this presentation. So about us, we were created in 2021. We are actually created as part of the plan. It was one of the first things the plan said is you got to create a division or a department that can actually implement the plan. And our former city manager, Ed Augustus, actually made that happen. We used to be in charge of a department that oversaw some of the city's buildings and the city's energy and energy efficiency measures, projects. And then we basically split that division into two departments, a facilities department, long overdue for the city side, by the way, but we created that. And then we also created our department here of sustainability. It includes, you can see the energy efficiency renewables section. Our lakes and ponds program is under us. Our zero waste program is under us. And all our climate change resilience planning and infrastructure. A lot of that is with us, but also with DPW, with the Department of Transportation Mobility and others. We work collaboratively with all of them. 221 to go. All right, so the Green Worcester Plan, I'll go through that first. The vision is we're going to become the greenest mid-sized city in the country. I think it's important you think big, and that's what we're trying to do here. for a medium-sized city. So we're not competing against New York, but we are competing against all the cities, in the 100 to 300,000 size range, and we're making strides. Actually, we're moving up that list as we speak. So it's we're there. We're actually one of the leading mid-sized cities in the country now. So you can be proud of that now, and we're getting better. So. And we have a Green Worcester Advisory Committee, which was formed in 2022 of 7 members. Their role is basically to bring information from the community to us, and for us, a way to provide information back out into the community through their own networks. All right, sustainability and resilience. I'm not going to go too much into this, but I want to just give a quick slide on, there are 3 pieces to it. The environmental piece, I think everyone gets on sustainability, resilience, green infrastructure, all that. Economics, obviously it's got to be a sustainable effort. You can't just do something and let it go. You have to maintain it. You have to make it have a value to itself that people understand and appreciate to make it sustainable. But the one part that often doesn't get talked about or as much as ideal, in my mind, is the social piece of that. Social resilience is absolutely critical to sustainability and physical resilience. If we don't have the people being aware of what the options are and are connected, we're not meeting the true goal of sustainability and resilience. So I covered this. We did a survey when we were doing the Green Worcester Plan, and I just took one bit of the survey out, and I just wanted to mention that close to 9 out of 10 people think that it's making our city more sustainable is important or very important. So only less than 10% of folks didn't think it was all that important. So the takeaway from that is that if you are one of the 9 out of 10, you actually look around and almost all your neighbors think very similarly to you. It's not a topic anymore that you just need to be a little bit shy about. You can actually talk about it and people will go, yeah, that's good. And then you can have a conversation. As opposed to what often has happened, especially with climate change, it's less so now. I think most everyone sort of accepts it, but the reasons behind it sometimes people have some questions about. And from where I'm sitting is that we're saying that 9 out of 10 people think it's important to do something about it, that's real and it's actionable, that we can take steps to do it, both individually and collectively. So that's another great takeaway from here for today. I did want to also point out one last quick thing here is that when we looked at, it was a telephone survey that we did, 606 people responded in English and Spanish. People of color had that number of 64% that says very important, was up to 74%. And that's interesting too, because it's usually people of color that are on the front lines of the bad sides of climate change, the damage that can occur. And so that's another key takeaway is that people see this. It's not just out there, it's in their own lives, in their own neighborhoods. As much as we want to talk about what the Green Worcester Plan is, I do want to spend just a little bit of time on what the Green Worcester Plan is not. And so it's not a prescriptive blueprint that tells us everything we're going to do till 2045, which is what the plan runs through. It's not going to have the details like a climate action plan does necessarily. It has it's more generic than that. It talks about the different pieces that make up what a plan should be composed of. The analogy I like to use for it's the difference between a menu at a restaurant and a recipe for a dish that's on that menu. So what we're building here, the Green Worcester Plan, is the menu. It's all the different things, the choices we need to make, and a larger overview of what they can be done. The detailed plans come second. And that's in the recipe that you would get in terms of making the dish that the chef will prepare. So a couple of examples of some of the sub-plans, if you will, that fall off of the Green Worcester Master Plan. The Mobility Action Plan, which was actually done by our good folks at the Transportation and Mobility Department. They're going to be speaking next. Our Urban Forestry Master Plan, which was done by the folks over at DPW and Parks. And then the Zero Waste Plan, which is ongoing, and we're shepherding that through. We're guided by 3 lenses. So equity, health, and prosperity. And so everything we suggest that goes through into our sub-plans and into the plan itself and all the actions that come out of that we'll look at through these three lenses to see if they actually, this is something worthy of our effort and time. We have about 10 people on staff and a relatively modest budget, and it's quite a large city. It's not something we can do by ourselves, of course. We need a lot of help. But if we're going to do something, if we're going to take it on, we have to be very thoughtful about those things that we do. There's, thousands of choices we could make, but we can't do 1,000 things. So what are the 5 or 10 things that we can do? And it's got to, at very first, meet the equity, health, and prosperity criteria, or otherwise we just put it on the back burner. These things evolve too. Some things that don't make the cut now, technology changes, funding opportunity changes, and all of a sudden it's something, now we want to do it because now it makes sense, but it didn't earlier. So we have a list here of 10 items here. Those of you old enough who remember David Letterman, he had a top 10 list. We were kind of riffing off that. And by we, I mean me. Everyone in my office is way younger than me, so they didn't even know who David Letterman really was. But I told them there was a top 10 list. And so we had a top 10 list of what we thought were the most important things to be included in the Green Worcester Plan. I won't read them off for you, but you can see it's pretty thoughtful and a rather complete list of all the things that should go into a Green Worcester, into any green plan, including our own here in Worcester. So the 3 key early actions that we've either done or are underway, which I mentioned briefly already, the Mobility Action Plan, the Urban Forestry Master Plan, and the Zero Waste Plan. You can see there's a lot of plans, and I get it. People say, well, we can't just be planning, we have to be doing. But I would respectfully disagree, is that when we just start doing stuff, we end up having to do things twice, or the thing we do, we don't do as well or as thoughtfully and integrate it with other things because we didn't plan beforehand. The measure twice, cut once rule, I think is a good one. The other saying, plan your work and work your plan, big fan. So that's what we're doing. So we're making these plans so that we're get everyone on the same page. These are not done just by a few people in our office. We hire a consultant, then we bring it out to the public as well as internally for key staff that might have to be involved in other departments. So we get a lot of buy-in for these plans right from the beginning. And so when they're finalized, we can just say go. We don't have to go back and have a conversation about is this what we want to do? Is this what we're going to do? No, we're doing it. We all agree to it. Now we can just go. Ends up actually being faster that way, and you get more done. So I'll go relatively quickly through these, trying to be thoughtful on time here. But a couple of our big goals in the plan are net zero and climate resilient buildings, which require new buildings to be net zero. We just passed, as you may have heard when we were talking about the new building codes, we have a new energy stretch code, which has come into place. New buildings now effectively are net zero ready as a part of that code. So that's a big change from what we had just very recently. The first part of stopping climate change or stopping a problem is or as my dad used to famously tell me, when you're find yourself in the bottom of a hole, the first thing you do is stop digging. Well, this is our effort to stop digging, making that hole work deeper. And here are our strategies, which you can probably guess at, and I'll let you read it as opposed to recite these. The next one is climate change resilience. This one is a real important one, all the more important of late because the federal government, as you know, has sort of backtracked a lot on the policies that had been in place and some of the incentives that were there too. We had been, kind of counting on that we'd have funding sources from federal and state level and the local level, of course, and we're losing some of the federal stuff, which makes the resilience side of the equation. We may not be able to keep. Are you guys familiar with the Paris Accords of keeping the global temperatures to 1.5 Celsius? Well, we're pretty much at like 1.5 Celsius now, give or take, depends. But because we may not make that goal, and it looks like we probably won't, being resilient to the inevitable changes of climate change become that much more important. So we're spending a lot of time and effort trying to think about how we can incorporate those kinds of green infrastructure into our networks, and gray infrastructure too, so that we don't have, or we minimize the effects for folks, so that things are bad as opposed to catastrophic. That's the real goal. Transportation choices, I'm not going to, Todd, who will be speaking here later, can speak to this better than I can, but we want to make sure that you have options, that it's not just a car and vehicle-driven society anymore. We want to have people so they can walk, they can bike, they can moped, they can whatever option they want, they can take those other choices. The bus, too, of course. We want to have all those kinds of options more readily available. A One Water integrated water management plan. So drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater, we're treating all that as one resource. Wastewater and stormwater are big ones we're studying right now. We're learning more about how to better manage that through our streets. Storms are going to get more intense. Flooding is going to become more of an issue. How do we avoid that? We've been doing a whole big mapping project right now to know exactly what we have in the field right now, doing some modeling as to where existing issues are and where they may get worse over time, especially over the next 15, 20 years. And how do we mitigate that? Where can we most effectively use taxpayer dollars to reduce these kinds of concerns? And then I believe this is the last goal I'll go through, but resilience and green education and all policies. We can't just do this stuff. We got to get buy-in from everybody, which means we got to get people, talk to people about it, people have them learn about it, have do these kinds of presentations, for example. But even better, do it in the schools. Any of you have kids, you know that having your kid learn something in the school and bringing it back to your house is the most effective way for that household to change a habit. Kids are very effective that way. Teachers, the teaching goes both ways. And so getting it into our education system is something we're working actively on right now. Not so easy with the way the schooling is set up, but there are ways in, so we're starting to discover them. So a few accomplishments that we've done just recently. We've set up a smart energy advice program, so for folks here, you can share with folks if you have questions about your utility bills, why they may be so high, because they are pretty high. I'm living through that myself. You can learn all about that and some of the options. We planted a couple of Miyawaki forests. We have one right behind the library. If you haven't seen it, probably not the best time to see it right now, but maybe in about like 3 weeks when it starts blooming, it's pretty cool. And then we have launched our zero waste master plan process. We have the specialized stretch code I mentioned, the drainage, green, and infrastructure master plan. We've completed phase 1, and we're hopeful for phase 2 to come through. We have a grant application in process that we've submitted, and we're hoping to get approval on that through the state. Project Blue Wister, that's a cool one. That's a watershed-based management plan to reduce pollution in our water bodies that we have recreational activities in. So it's not for drinking water. Drinking water is done separately and very effectively, I might add, by our folks over at DPW and our water sewer department. But this is for all the lakes and ponds, the primary ones, the Indian Lake, Lake Quincy, Coast Pond, those where we have recreational facilities there. And we want to make sure that they're safe and for kids and adults to play in and use during the summer, especially during the hot days in the summer. And we have funding for trees. Trees are actually a really simple and effective way to solve a lot of problems, more than you'd think. Between health, the safety, aesthetics, stormwater management, storing carbon, trees do a lot of good stuff. And so we have funds that were set aside from ARPA, and we hope to install up to 2,000 trees over the next 2 years using ARPA funds, predominantly in areas that don't have trees. So think of all the downtown and surrounding areas that tend to have trees that were removed over time and then not replaced. So there's lots of opportunities there. So for the upcoming year, we're looking at things to do in energy, and I'm going to try to be mindful of time here, so I'm going to go relatively quickly. But energy, resilience, and zero waste, mobility, updating policies, and education. So it's all in there, and we're working on all of it sort of all at the same time. We don't go particularly faster than any one of them, but the idea is that we can be thoughtful about each and every one of them so that we get a good plan in place, and then we can move forward working with our other departments and other community partners as well in tandem, and then move much more quickly. So the zero waste plan, which is the other half of what we wanted to talk about here today. The zero waste plan is basically to implement a plan to prevent, reduce, reuse, compost, and recycle waste. It's pretty straightforward. What often doesn't get mentioned, and I actually didn't write it in the slide deck, so shame on me on that, but it is probably one of the two lowest cost items to reduce energy emissions, carbon emissions, is through reductions in waste. So waste has a lot, it produces, landfills have methane that produce a lot of methane, which is bad, one of the worst climate change causing gas than CO2 is, in fact, by a factor of 30 or so. And of course, we have most of our trash here in Worcester is burned at the local incinerator. It's waste to energy incinerator over in Millbury. And any waste incinerator by default is going to have pollution attached to it. And so all these things, if the less trash we have to burn or put in the landfill, the better for the environment. Never mind the fact that we get reduced litter and all the other benefits that come out from that as well. So the goals is first, we got to know where we are, and that's what we're doing now. We're doing a study right now. We're actually we've taken trash bags, maybe from one of you, we don't know. We kind of did it randomly. We took trash from a variety of folks that are in our standard the yellow bag plan, if you participate in that. From folks who live in larger multifamily buildings, we took trash from that too. From some of our larger businesses, our schools, we tried to get a representative from everybody that make up our community here so that we could see what's in the waste and how then, based on that information, how can we best divert most of it. And we've already got some interesting input already, and all this will become very public once we get a chance to analyze it. I don't want to speak out of turn. I say one thing and then it'll be completely different later, but I can say with confidence it's very interesting where we stand to date. And then, of course, make an actionable roadmap for the material diversion from the waste stream. That's going to be the end goal here. So the planning process, as I mentioned, is the current state of review and analysis. You can see over, on the pictures here, especially on the lower right, that's where all the recycling goes. That's called the MRF. And I should probably know what that stands for, but it's the F is for facility, so there's that. But it's basically where all the recycling goes, and it's sorted and then shipped out and sold. So that's what keeps costs down. It doesn't pay for itself, but it does reduce the cost for our recycling efforts. We are very actively trying to get community stakeholder engagement. So there's 3 listening sessions. We did one earlier today with the Chamber of Commerce. If you are interested, you can even right now put your QR code and take a survey with us, so we can get some feedback from folks about what your thoughts are on the Yellow Bag program and the recycling program and a whole bunch of other key information that we want to make sure is included. We've got, I think, 800 so responses net to date. We've only put it up for about a week, so we're going to let it run through the end of the month. Hopefully we get maybe a 1,500 total, which can be very informative for our next steps. So you can see it's a pretty robust effort. Public meetings, online town meetings, everyone will get a chance. You don't have to do it, but everyone will get a chance to participate if you'd like. And so that's basically we want to make sure that we meet people where they are. And so if you're interested, you can, in any one of these venues, you can share what you would like as part of improving our processes on getting to zero waste. So the waste characterization study, which is actually going to wrap up this week, is what I was mentioning. We take the random samples, we do sorting, weighting, recording, and the whole idea is to divert it from the Wheelabrator facility, which incinerates our waste currently. Then we have an implementation plan, setting the goals. That's all part in the survey, plays a role in that. Monitoring and evaluation. What's our budget? How do we allocate our resources most effectively? An implementation roadmap. What do we do first, second, third? What time frame we're going to do? What things are we going to have to go back and keep on doing over and over again? Which things are more one-off thing efforts? And then education outreach is going to be like the back of the old Johnson shampoo. If you ever saw that, it's a lather. The instructions were lather, rinse, repeat. And that's what education outreach is all about. Just lather, rinse, repeat. Say it and say it again. Say it till it hurts. And then about that point, people start listening. So that's sort of what we're trying to do here. That's our goal is over the next, you guys are in the front line, so you'll probably hear it more than most. But you can be helpful in letting everyone know so that I don't have to say it 15,000 times. I can maybe only say it 15 times. And everyone will catch on to what we're trying to do here. So looking forward, we aim to complete the writing of the zero waste plan in the next 12 months. Hopeful to have it presented to the council sometime in the winter of 2026. We're going to continue with the outreach for community, trying to get feedback. We have a whole bunch of resources on our zero waste right now, and beyond just zero waste at our sustainability dashboard, which you can find at the link there. We have our DSR webpage, DSR Department of Sustainability and Resilience. We have a story maps. We have a Worcester Atlas, which is another kind of cool map viewer. And we have historic related info of things we've done in the past, information about solar or anything like that you might be interested in. Please join our newsletter. You can sign up. The easiest thing is Green Worcester at worcesterma.gov. You sign up for that, and you'll get up-to-date news every quarter, and maybe even more frequently, depending if something interesting happens. So it's a great way to just keep up of what's going on, and it provides a great feedback loop because you can actually ask questions through that same link that you get the newsletter in. You can actually, greenworcester.org, you can send email back if you have any questions. And that's it. Whew. So I guess we have time for a couple questions. Three questions. All right. Your hand was up first. It was very close, by the way. You were. The question was about the yellow bags and that we've changed the sleeve. It used to come in a small bag, and now it's in a paper sleeve. The sleeve itself has some interesting info on it, which was part of the design plus for it. And of course, we didn't want you to have a bag that contained recycling bags that you had to throw out. That kind of just seemed intuitively wrong. But you're not the first person to complain that the glue is actually too good, if you will. Yes. So it makes it much more challenging. So I'll take that feedback back. I will tell you that there's probably a pretty decent supply of the current ones already in the field. So the next couple of these, you may have to get the same problem for warned is forearmed kind of thing. But we will definitely see if we can make that better because, you know, we don't want to solve one problem and create another one. So thank you for that, for sure.
Two questions. The smart energy advocate that was on that last slide, is that the same as what National Grid provides? Or is this something city-based?
It is actually funded by the National Grid and Eversource, but it is basically a one-on-one so that you can ask some very specific questions about your circumstance. If, in fact, the information is such that you should participate in the Mass Save program, given the information you provide provide back to the Smart Energy Advocate, then you can get that information. And we will sign you up for that program. But it's more than just that. So lots of folks have questions about the different parts of your bills. This Smart Energy Advocate can answer those questions. Oh, we got a double. All new buildings. So quick backstory, I'll go briefly, but this is based on a state code. The state has what's called a stretch code in place. The city was a member of the stretch code from when it first came out in 2010. And then the state then gave communities an option to sign up for the specialized stretch code, which is basically taking the regular stretch code and stretching it even more into the code that we have now, which applies to every new structure. It even applies to larger renovations as well. So whether it's a residential or commercial, you will be going for, as of July of last year, it took effect. And so all new construction will have to abide by that. It doesn't mean necessarily that you can't use gas or even oil for heating and hot water if so desire. What it does mean, though, is that the only way to truly get to net zero with current technology is using electricity for heat pumps, whether it be ground heat pumps or air source heat pumps or similar. New technologies are coming on board that use different mediums to do all this, but the interesting thing about that is that if you build a building that is ready to be electrified from the start, even if it isn't electric at the beginning, it's a 10-to-1 ratio in terms of cost, in terms of retrofitting it. If you build it in the first place, it's very cheap. If you do it after the fact, when everyone eventually is going to be moving off fossil fuels, it's pretty much inevitable that it's going to have to happen. It's just when. And so if you move people off fossil fuels, not having that already built in makes it prohibitively expensive. And so that's the idea, is that we'll get it built in right going forward. Oh, sorry. I misinterpreted you, and I totally opened it. Well, there are the incentives on the federal level may or may not, still to be determined, be rescinded, but the ones definitely on the state level aren't going anywhere, which are significant. If you buy a new car, it's $4,000, and it's yeah. So I was just going to go there. So when people buy these new cars, so there's incentives on the cars, basically, just to finish that. The incentives to install the infrastructure needed to charge your car, whether it be done at your house, if you have a driveway ideally, that you could do that, or whether you do it off street. We're looking at both of those options to make it so that it can be very cost effective for folks who don't have driveways, for example, but want to get a EV to do that. The incentive prop is not something that the city is going to do, but we are actively working with National Grid and our state to see if we can have them incentivize this. This is actually in their long-term interest as well. This helps them balance load too. These are all big batteries that when collectively, you think about it collectively, for cars and larger vehicles as well, as more and more of these EVs come on board. It's a huge amount of battery storage that can be used to help balance those loads, which makes their life and our lives less expensive. The technology to do that is in the works, and they're actually about to do a pilot program on that very topic. But the idea is that if you can incentivize people, not as much necessarily on the upfront cost, but when you use it, so you get essentially a reduced rate, or you get some kind of other incentive rebate. Yeah, so it's all in there. Yeah, yours and mine both. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And I totally agree with you. My own house is electric. I switched just when Ukraine and Russia went to war, and the price of gas shot up, and the price of electricity shot up then, and then it's gone ebbed and flowed since, and my bills are crazy high too, so I'm totally sympathetic with that. I do know, though, that the solution to that is not something we're going to solve here in Worcester, but it's more systemic. But I do know that the cheapest, and I'll leave you with this, the cheapest power right now to produce is solar, and the next cheapest is wind. And solar right now is so cheap, it's actually cheaper to start from scratch to build a solar array, either on your house or a larger scale solar array, to build it and operate it, a solar array, than it is to just run an existing oil, coal, and most gas plants. So you can see there's a real financial incentive to going renewables. It's just that there just isn't enough of them, and we don't have enough battery capacity to balance that loads appropriately like we were discussing before. So there is relief in sight. It's just not in the immediate term. It's just a little bit longer than that, the near medium term, as these, especially the ones local wind farms are hoped to be built out off the coast across all of New England. So I am going way over, so I got to stop. And Eliana's giving me the very friendly stop look, so I will stop.
The next speaker is Assistant Commissioner of the Department of Transportation and Mobility, Todd Crane. He's going to talk to us about a number of things, mainly about transportation and mobility and Vision Zero, which is one of my favorite initiatives in the city. So welcome, Todd.
So first I want to apologize. We are in the middle of a traffic and parking meeting across the hall that's been going since 5 o'clock. So Commissioner Raleigh was supposed to come over and join the presentation. So I'm going to pinch hit until he comes over. But essentially, we're going to talk about safe, equitable, and sustainable transportation for all with respect to the Department of Transportation and Mobility. So DTM, as we go by, was founded in August of 2022. So we are the newest department within the city. And we were created essentially with the goal of our reasoning for is in partnership with other agencies and municipal departments, DTM plans, coordinates, designs, and implements transportation programs and projects that promote safe, equitable, and sustainable mobility options. So essentially what happened was previous city manager Augustus, as well as Mayor Petty, believed that there was a need in the city to start focusing more on creating a comprehensive transportation network that looked at all modes, so not just cars or trucks, but actually looked at prioritizing bikes, walking, people traveling by walking, biking, public transit, as well as how that all melted together, not just for residents, but also how are we getting to our businesses, places of employment, how are students getting from campuses down into the center of business, and creating a more comprehensive transportation network that basically prioritizes all modes, especially safety. And we don't work in a silo. So like other departments, as I'm sure Commissioner Odell talked about, when it talks about in partnership, we work very closely with our partners on both the city and state level. Just some of them, we work very closely with Department of Public Works, Department of Sustainability and Resilience, the Executive Office of Economic Development, Department of Public Health, School Department, Police Department, Fire Department. So we take a very comprehensive look to include all aspects of opinions or needs across the city to make sure our transportation network is working efficiently and effectively at moving people. And then on the state level, we work closely with, of course, Mass DOT and the Worcester Regional Transportation Authority. So what DTM is we have taken various aspects that were in other departments and moved them into one house and to make sure that we're all working together. So we have traffic engineering, transportation planning, parking and curbside management, rules, regulations, parking meters, garages, as well as parking enforcement, all under one roof, making sure that we're all working towards one comprehensive mission and again, focusing on creating that multimodal transportation network. Instead of having everybody in different departments doing different pieces, we're all now under one house, one building, one commissioner. In terms of policy guidelines that really guides the work that we do, there's 4 main policy guidelines. You might have already heard of one of them tonight in the previous speaker. But essentially, Worcester Complete Streets. So Worcester became a Complete Streets community in 2017. And Complete Streets basically is a national program that Worcester adopted that says that when we are redesigning our roadways, we are going to make sure that our roads accommodate all users for safety and accessibility. So we're not just going to look at cars and moving them as fast as possible from point A to point B. We're going to be looking at moving people. So that includes considering pedestrians in terms of sidewalks, crosswalks, cyclists and micromobility users in terms of bike lanes, transit users in terms of WRTA, fare-free, making sure our bus stops are located properly and are ADA compliant and are supporting those people who are moving via public transit. Also looking at emergency response, so making sure that our emergency vehicles, our fire apparatus, our ambulances can get to point A to point B in the most efficient and safest manner. The next one that we guide by is the Green Worcester Plan, as I'm sure Commissioner Odell was talking about. Aspects of the Green Worcester Plan deal with transportation and call for us to create a more sustainable transportation network that supports things like EV parking, EV usage, as well as shared transportation, bike share, car share, Uber, Lyft, those types of things, as well as public transit. The next we have what's called the Worcester Mobility Action Plan. So this is the first comprehensive plan that was put out by our department, as well as in conjunction with sustainability and resilience, that really created the master plan that DTM will focus on over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's a series of recommendations and specific goals for us to create that, again, holistic multimodal network in terms of moving people, all the things I previously mentioned, but it's specific goals that talk about, transit improvements, bike improvements, pedestrian improvements, traffic signal improvements, working closely with our partners in emergency services and making sure that the network is helping ambulances and is responsive to their needs. So that's sort of our guiding document that we're now following for all the work we're doing. And the last that we're going to talk about later tonight is Vision Zero. So Vision Zero is the newest plan. Vision Zero is an international movement that has come to the United States probably in the last 10 years. And what that does is okay, I'm already getting beeped at. What Vision Zero does is Vision Zero sets the goal. It looks specifically at the design of the roadway as well as policies to set the goal to get to 0 fatalities or serious injuries on our roadways by a certain date. And we have worked over the past year with consultants to develop Worcester's Vision Zero plan. It was just recently released. It is in draft form right now. It's going before City Council for approval, and I'll dive into that shortly. And just so everybody, there's sometimes misconceptions in terms of what is DTM doing? Where do we get all the information we're doing? Are we just kind of making stuff up as we go? The answer is no. There is federal, state guidelines, industry guidelines, rules, regulations that we have to follow. I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are all the different either federal law, state law, or design guidelines that we have to utilize when we make any rules, regulations, or designs on the public way. They're released by Federal Highway, ADA by the United States and Massachusetts Architectural Access Boards, things like ADA, public rights of way, urban street designs, you name it, there is a federal or state regulation for us to follow it. Commissioner Raleigh just entered the room. That means our meeting finally ended. You can feel free to jump in when you want. And so I just want to dive in now on why is Worcester focusing on traffic safety right now? And these are some pretty scary statistics when you think about it. So the current historic roadway design is essentially what's being called in the industry dangerous by design. It's dangerous for all roadway users. 439 people were killed in motor vehicle traffic crashes in 2022 on Massachusetts roads. That was a record year. Every indication is 2023 was a little bit safer, but 2024 actually jumped up again, unfortunately. Nationwide, there was 42,795 deaths that year. In Massachusetts, 101 pedestrians were killed in 2022. Again, a record year. There was over 7,500 killed nationwide. And these are pedestrians that were struck by motor vehicles. The vast majority of them were in crosswalks or immediately around crosswalks. 10 cyclists were killed, 124 seriously injured in Massachusetts roads in 2022, 291 nationwide. Worcester had the second highest number of pedestrian fatality crashes in 2022 with 7 crashes. So out of all of the municipalities, I know we take pride in being the second largest in New England. We don't want to take pride for being the second highest for pedestrian fatalities. The first was Boston, but when you consider the population of Boston versus the population of Worcester, it's a pretty scary statistic. Also, we know from studies both nationally as well as within the state that, that traffic violence, as we call it, disproportionately affects communities of color. Black Americans had the highest traffic fatality rate per mile traveled across all modes. So whether you are walking, biking, public transit, or driving, they have the highest fatality rate traveled. And really, the reasons for this is because there has been a systemic disinvestment or underinvestment in many things, but especially in transportation systems and safety in the communities of color, unfortunately. And that plays out both locally as well as nationally. Also, it disproportionately affects the older population. So federal studies have showed that people over 65 made up 38.6%, actually this is in Massachusetts, 38.6% of fatal pedestrian crashes in Massachusetts roads in 2022 were people over the age of 65, even though the population-wise is only 17.4%. So again, there's a disproportionate rate of traffic violence affecting older populations. So essentially, we're going to get into Vision Zero now, and the reason why we started with that, and the reason why DTM was created, one of the main reasons was Vision Zero and safety, improving safety on Worcester roads. So we were able to secure a planning grant through the Safe Streets for All funding from the federal government that paid for the hiring of a consultant to develop Worcester's Vision Zero action plan. And working with Stan Tech as well as Spec Dempsey, we were able to secure their technical support in putting together our Vision Zero action plan. And as we went through that process, the first thing you do is a deep data dive. You look at all the crash reports that takes place within the city of Worcester. And, you look at 5 years worth, and it's pretty shocking information. So between 2019 and 2023, 45 people died and 461 people were seriously injured on Worcester streets alone. Every day, based on those statistics and the crash reports that we looked at, every day 3 vehicle crashes occur. Every 4 days, 1 serious or fatal vehicle crash occurs in Worcester on our streets.
The 3 crashes every day, those are crashes that result in injuries. The number of crashes that occur every day is way higher than that, but 3 crashes a day that actually have a suspected or confirmed injury. So just wanted to point that out.
So again, with respect to pedestrians, every 5 days, 1 pedestrian crash occurs that result in an injury. Every 25 days, 1 serious or fatal injury pedestrian crash occurs. And that, obviously we all know what a fatal one is, but what a serious one is, that means that it required medical attention, transport to a hospital with follow-up care. And then for cyclists, every 17 days, 1 bicycle crash occurs that involves an injury, and then every 140 days, 1 serious or fatal bike crash occurs within the city of Worcester. And the reason why we broke it up like this is to show that this is not a pedestrian issue. This is not a bike issue. This is not a motor vehicle issue. This is a safety issue that's affecting you on Worcester streets, regardless of what mode you're using. There is a high rate of injuries, serious injuries, and fatality risk on Worcester streets, regardless of how you're traveling on them. The plan set the goal to be 0 deaths and fatalities by 2035. So obviously, that's 10 years from now and a lot of work to do. So just to give you, with respect to the Vision Zero plan, just to give you some idea of the project timeline, we kicked off in February of 2024. We had working meeting groups. We had a kickoff meeting called the State of Our Streets, which featured nationally renowned Jeff Speck, who was one of our consultants, who is a well-known urban planner that dealing with roadway safety. He has written several books on this issue. We then had a phase one outreach. So this was a very comprehensive, it was meant to really engage the community, not just be something that DTM put together or sort of a small group. We really went out into the community to get public engagement, to get the feedback of the residents on this. Phase two outreach went from May to September. During that time, there was unfortunately a series of serious injury and fatal crashes involving minors that happened over the summer. That led to Mayor Petty and City Manager Batista declaring a road safety crisis for traffic violence in the city of Worcester, and really calling for the need for all departments to come together and tackle this issue. We released our priority network in October. Again, we released the draft plan, and it is out waiting City Council approval at this point. So the community working groups, we brought in representatives from various community groups, business sectors, universities, medical facilities, the school department, the ADA community, the pedestrian advocacy groups, the bike advocacy groups, the public transit advocacy groups. We tried to put together a wide range of people. We had over, I think it was around 30 people on these community working groups in order to get their feedback. And what we did is we reviewed all of the data that we found with them. We got their ideas on the institutional barriers, identifying them that would lead to that we could identify so that we could, again, create a plan that addresses them. And then also get their support with respect to engaging, going back into the community, because we can only reach so far, so we really use them to go back into the community, educate their networks on Vision Zero as well, and to get their feedback on developing a Vision Zero network plan. Internal working groups. One of the things that Worcester did, I think personally better than a lot of other communities that did it, that are going through this process, is that the city manager from the beginning said that this is an all hands on deck. So the Vision Zero is two-part. It is looking at your roadways, redesigning it, updating your regulations, but it's also a policy part in making sure that what DTM policies are being put in place, or DPW's policies are put in place, or what DSR is doing, or what the fire department is doing in terms of the size of their apparatus, or where they're locating their stations or their responses, are working together instead of working in silos. And what city manager did is he brought, for the very first meeting, he brought the heads of all departments in and said that Vision Zero, we want you to look at all of your policies across all of your departments, work together to make sure they're all supporting each other. To make sure that DTM, when we are going out and designing roadways, we're not making it harder for fire apparatuses to get from point A to point B. But also to make sure that we are, when we're working with the school department, we're making sure that we are putting in safety traffic calming measures around schools, and we're supporting school operations. So we met throughout a year, every 1 to 2 months, in the internal working group, including Ileana, who represented the mayor, to make sure there was that voice in the room as well. Looking at all the policies that the city had and bringing them all in line. So as I said, we had our State of the Streets Forum kickoff. This is available online. It is a great event. We had, I want to say, about 300 people at least, who were mostly residents that came to hear the city manager sort of kick off the Vision Zero, but really to hear from Jeff Speck, who is, again, a nationally recognized leader in this field and the author of what's called Walkable Cities. If you are into urban planning, Jeff Speck is kind of like your god, or the, a very popular. We had people that were coming in with their books And they were there to see him, and they mobbed him afterwards and like, sign my book, please. And
You mean the 300 people weren't for us? Yeah.
I wish.
Seriously, though, if you are, if this topic of street safety and actually just community planning in general resonates with you, I'd encourage you to go and watch this presentation if you've got some free time. It really was a great event to kick off this effort.
Yeah, and what he focused on was the concepts, but he also showed examples of them nationwide. And I was quite surprised. When he first sent us a presentation, there were like 400 slides. And we were like, Jeff, you have an hour. Are you crazy? There's no way you're getting through 400 slides. And he said, trust me. I go through them quick, but I deliver the message and I'll get through them. And sure enough, he got through them all. It was amazing to watch. So as part of our phase 1 community, we started with just a broad-based survey that we sent out that we wanted the residents to identify across all modes. Where are the dangerous spots? Where do you not feel safe walking? Where do you not feel safe biking? Where do you not feel safe driving, quite frankly? Where are you trying to catch your bus and you don't feel safe waiting there for the bus? We received, we put this out on social media. We sent it out again across those various networks of our external working group. We received over 1,200 survey responses and 744 comments on the map. So each dot represents the mode they recognized, they identified in the dangerous spot. And again, 20% of all comments were related to pedestrian safety. And this was specifically pedestrian concerns about being unsafe in these areas. Yeah, so each one is a mode. So I forget what the colors are, but each one was a mode. So if you were by bike, it was one color. If you were walking, it was another color, or if you were driving.
I'm trying to see if I can remember just looking. Yeah, right. It's it's every color.
Yeah, so that's like
better, but still every color. I think red was automobile.
It probably does.
I believe red was automobile.
I think,
no.
No.
All right.
I'm going to go back.
Good question. We should know the answer to that.
I think it's actually right here. So I think it's red, green. Although I don't think biking was black. I think biking might have been blue. The worst thing is asking me to do this because I'm partially colorblind. So I'm the wrong person to ask what the colors were. We took all that, in the phase 1, we took all that information. Our consultants processed that. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to, with Vision Zero, identify the priority network of those streets that are the least safe, and to focus on those and then create a second level and then a third level of work. So but it was important for us not to just do based on the crash data alone. We wanted to really see where the users and the residents felt unsafe, and to factor that in the creation of our priority network as well. Phase 2, we did a ton of community pop-up events. So we went to 10 different events the various community events that were run through the parks. We had our tents out there. We had our maps. Again, we were asking people to identify where do you not feel safe. Over those 10 events, we had 85 comments and even more conversations. Some of the highlights was there's a lot of red light running in Worcester. And again, we had people write, basically story maps, where do you not feel safe and what's most dangerous. And the themes coming out was, 1, red light running in Worcester. Another quote was the most dangerous road was Massasoit. That person felt like Massasoit was the most dangerous road due to speeding. I'm sure we all have our own opinion on the most dangerous road in Worcester when it comes to speeding. Another one was at the I-290 College Hill exit. As you merge onto Southbridge Street, it's hard to see cars. I take that one daily. I take my life in my hands every time I do. You're looking way over your shoulder like this, and you got 2 lanes of fast-moving traffic coming right at you, and you're hoping you time it right. And then other speeding drivers don't stop for pedestrians. That was another constant theme throughout this. Another part of our community outreach was our demo event that we did in conjunction with the Safe Routes to School at the Vernon Hill This is still out there. It was meant to be a 1 month, but the materials last much longer than 1 month. And what this did is we engaged the students. There was an issue at Vernon Hill with a very unsafe crossing in front that was always being blocked, not just by the buses at the time, but also fast-moving cars, parents pulling up and parking right up to the crosswalks. And the constant, message from the crossing guard when we talked to them was that it is that she had worked at other schools and this was the worst one she had in terms of trying to get the attention of drivers and peek out with her stop sign before she felt comfortable letting kids cross. So we did, we set up, we worked with the kids to actually design this street art, which does two things. One, it kind of makes it a little bit nicer for a school zone, but also when you use artwork in the street, it actually has a mild form of traffic calming because as drivers are approaching it, they see it's something different, and it takes it forces them to slow down, and they're like, what's going on here? It makes them pay attention a little bit better. So we painted all the crosswalks in the purple color, and the kids chose the colors, although somebody asked if Holy Cross sponsored it, they did not. And then we did the sort of the zebra design in gold and blue, and we worked with 3 different grades, so we came out, marked it, and then they came out and actually painted it as part of their art class. So this was a great event. We had support from DPW and the police. We also set up a bike lane along the school, as well as curb extensions, temporary curb extensions to model that sort of traffic calming to show with these relatively minor changes in the roadway, you could dramatically improve safety for the students at this location. As also part of that event, we worked with Mass Bike, and we ran a bike rodeo. So Worcester Earn a Bike brought a whole bunch of bikes over for those kids that did not have bikes in the back of the school, and they had helmets, and then Worcester PD also supplied helmets. Our instructors taught people how to ride bikes, and then they actually led them on a bike ride around the campus, and using that bike lane, which is right here, which is along the curbside that we made temporarily. And they did about six or seven loops throughout the time. So it was a lot of fun, but it was very educational for them as well. And another event that we did, again, with these kids is we had them map their route. So working with their teachers, we had them identify, where they were coming from, where they were walking from their house to their school or driving from, back and forth or biking. And we wanted them to identify where they felt unsafe. So we asked them from their perspective, as you're walking down, is there a crosswalk you don't feel safe at? Is there a lack of a sidewalk? Is there something that should be a sidewalk, but when you look at it, it's probably really not a sidewalk? And we got all of that data as well, so that, again, it was about data collection and understanding the barriers that our residents were facing so that we can make a plan to address them. And then, unfortunately, in June and July, we had a series of fatal and serious injury crashes on Belmont Street involving a 13-year-old who was hit by a motor vehicle and passed away. We had another, I believe, 14 or 15-year-old on Shrewsbury Street who was struck, crossing the street, was struck by a motor vehicle, was in a coma for several months. Luckily, she has recovered. Surprisingly, there was a toddler on Lincoln Street that was struck, who I believe is still in a coma. And this was, again, last summer. And then we had an early 20-year-old who was coming home from work at night on a scooter and was struck by a motor vehicle, all in a series of about 3 to 4 weeks. And this really highlighted the need for Worcester to prioritize this. And Mayor Petty and City Manager Batista really moved the needle and came out heavy on this and released the following statement as well as more. But essentially saying, in light of 3 recent and tragic pedestrian crashes, 1 involving a child and 2 others involving young adolescents struck by motor vehicles, we are declaring a road safety and traffic violence crisis in the city of Worcester. And what this did is this mobilized not just DTM, but really all of the departments, police, fire, city council to really start working together and coming around and addressing this issue. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that it took that to bring everyone together, but thanks to the mayor's leadership as well as the city manager, we are now all moving forward with this action. After that, we did another round of community outreach with priority network walks. So as we developed our priority network based on the feedback from the residents that we collected in the first phase, plus all the crash data and analysis, what came to the forefront, and it'll probably not surprise you, Belmont Street, Shrewsbury Street, Cambridge Street, Lincoln Street, Park Avenue, all popped as the highest roadways that had the not just highest number of crashes, but had the characteristics that would lead to crashes. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's. No. You're absolutely 100% right. In the data showed that.
We have some maps here and a couple of slides that'll show that, yeah.
So what we did is we did what's called walk audits. So our consultants led these walk audits where we walked around with residents, elected officials, city staff from various departments to walk and talk as we were walking through and to point out and have others point out to our consultants what was dangerous about this street, and to really show, okay, you have a 5-foot or 4-foot sidewalk next to 2 travel lanes, of fast-moving traffic. You have crosswalks that have to go across 6 lanes of traffic on Belmont Street. Those types of characteristics or you have a crosswalk and the next one's not for another mile away, and if somebody's not walking up a mile, they're gonna cross where they're gonna cross. And to really identify those characteristics on those streets that make them dangerous. So we packaged all of this information together and released the draft report and the report recommendations. So I'm sure in your lifetime at some point you've heard of the 3 E's of roadway safety. It's education, engineering, and enforcement. And Federal Highway over the last probably 5 to 6 years has done a lot of digging into this and said the 3 E's are not enough. We need to really reshape the message and look at creating what's called a safe systems approach. So this has replaced the 3 E's and elevated it. And essentially what the safe systems approach does is it says we need to create safer people through habits, through regulation, through education. We need to create safer vehicles through vehicle design. We need to create safer speeds. We need to move away from our high speeds in our urban core and reduce the speed limits. We also need to create safer roads. So through redesigning of the roadways, we need to create roads that reinforce that safe driving. And then we also have to focus on post-crash care. So we have to factor in, again, that emergency response or take into consideration the crash data and the what happens in the medical field and relate that back in public health and relate that back to what's happening on the public way. And it works off of the premise that deaths and serious injuries are unacceptable, that humans make mistakes, that humans are vulnerable, that responsibility is shared, that safety is proactive, and redundancy is crucial. So everything we do is shaped around the safe systems approach. And every so in terms of relying on just a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit is not enough. You have to rebuild the road to reinforce the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. So you have the regulation plus the road design works as a redundant factor. Yep. It divided all of the recommendations up into 4 categories. So design recommendations to address early actions on top priority corridors, systemic change, so that informs strategies for improving streets quickly and broadly, continued community engagement, so inform, educate, foster all city effort, promote transparency, and continue that all the way through, and then policy and coordination and strategy, coordinating between actions for city departments. So Steve, you can feel free to
Yeah,
jump
no,
in.
I'll give you a break here. So just, we're going to bring it across the home stretch here. Just talk about each of those 4 categories. So the first one is design. This is the one that gets a lot of attention. This is what a lot of times people think that's all you're focusing on, and it is important. And honestly, some of the design work's really fun. But the idea here was to identify this priority network that Todd's been talking about that was comprised of, where we knew there were a lot of crashes occurring, so the highest crash corridors, corridors that we knew had characteristics that tend to lead to more crashes or more severe crashes. Whether that was happening or not in the data, we knew that statistically, when you look nationally or even worldwide, streets with really wide lanes or streets with multiple lanes, more than they need, tend to result in more crashes or crashes that are more severe. And then finally, the outreach we talked about. Okay, what did we miss? You guys tell us what we missed. What does the data not show us? Weighting that all together to identify this priority network. And I think the next slide shows, yeah, so this categorizes that network. The corridors you see in red are what we call the first tier priorities. These are the ones that really jump to the forefront. Todd named them. There are no surprises, right? Park Avenue, Lincoln Street, Belmont Street, Shrewsbury Street, Main Street, South Main Street, Cambridge Street. No one's surprised by any of those, right? Then we have what we call our next round of focus. These are corridors that have a lot of similar issues, but you can only do so much at once, so you have to start somewhere. So really focusing on those first 6 corridors, I believe it is, while we also start to think about actions on the yellow corridors. And again, not a lot of surprises there. Lake Ave, you mentioned Massasoit, I think, yep, Massasoit's colored there. Grafton Street. So again, a lot of the sort of usual suspects that you'd expect. We did also want to identify streets that had been recently reconstructed. So a portion of Grafton Street and Main Street in downtown had been recently reconstructed. So while the data was saying, hey, there's a safety issue here, it's in some cases too soon to tell whether those redesigns helped at all. We do know on Main Street it did, though. The crash rates on Main Street in downtown are significantly lower than they were prior to that project being done. Okay, next slide. Oh, yeah, so just briefly talking about the potential treatments on these 6 corridors. So looking at things like, and these actually apply across the corridor, so I won't go one by one, but things like reducing the pedestrian crossing distances. So some of these are 4, 5, even 6-lane roads. That's a long way to ask a pedestrian to cross without any protection from traffic. So trying to reduce those, looking at exclusive pedestrian phasing at traffic signals so you don't have conflicting vehicles that you have to try to negotiate when you're crossing. Thinking about, I know we all get frustrated by traffic congestion, but there's places in our road network where we've striped a lane, well-intentioned, thinking, hey, this is going to make it less congested, this is going to help traffic move through here, and it actually doesn't. It's just this space that gets taken that's not actually serving the purpose it's supposed to and is making that road more dangerous. So identifying where those locations are and thinking about how to use that space in a more effective way and in a safer way. One of the ways we do that is through what's called a road diet, is the popular term. Have people heard that term before? So the idea is that, and it's particularly applied to 4-lane roads, so a road with 2 lanes in each direction. Those tend to be the least safe roads there are. And the reason for that is you have friction all over the place and a lot of lane changing. So on the right lane, you're typically dealing with the parking lane adjacent to it. In the left lane, you're dealing with people periodically stopping in what's thought of as the high-speed travel lane to make a left turn, right? It might be a left turn into a driveway, into a cross street, something like that. That exacerbates the lane changing because, you know how it is. You get in the left lane, someone wants to turn left in front of you, you get back over into the right lane. All of those maneuvers increase the probability that you're going to get into a crash. So by converting those 4-lane roads to a 3-lane road, and that's a single travel lane in each direction, and then providing turn pockets. So if you're making that left turn, you get over into that turn pocket, you're out of the way of traffic. It actually helps the throughput on your one remaining lane, and we find that all the way up to, Initially they said, oh, 18,000 vehicles a day. They were kind of comparable. Now there's instances of in the mid and even upper 20,000 vehicle a day roadways can be efficiently accommodated and much more safely accommodated with these 3-lane cross sections.
And just one note about the road dieting in those multi-lane roads, those are particularly dangerous for pedestrians because they create what's even called a double threat. Even though you have a crosswalk, I enter the crosswalk, that person in the right lane stops for me. That person coming behind them doesn't know why they stopped, doesn't want to stop, so they swing into the left lane and keep going right as I step in. And that was actually, that was the result of the Shrewsbury, and we believe also the Belmont Street crash as well, are those double threats.
Yep. All right, next slide. So systemic actions are ones that don't apply to a particular section of roadway or intersection, but things you do more broadly. So looking at auditing the posted speed limits, I'm not going to get into the weeds on this, but there are different regulations we have to follow when we apply speed limits. There's one blanket speed limit that applies across the city, which is now 25 miles per hour that you've probably heard about. But that doesn't apply to every roadway. Some roadways have their own posted speed limit that's different. So we need to take a look at all of those and make sure they make sense for the context. Just in general, improving pedestrian safety around uncontrolled crosswalks. Do you have all the proper signage at those crosswalks to help draw attention to them? Have we looked at things like curb extensions there so that when you're a pedestrian, you're actually standing out in the line of sight of a driver and they can see you and you can see them? So things like that apply broadly at locations around the city, looking at programs to help expand those. Next slide.
And just to follow, just so as Steve's getting ready to go, all of the sort of the safety impact area will relate back to those safe roads, safe people, post-care. So as you're looking at this material, we're not going to go through all of it, but you can see how it all relates back to those themes.
And then just wanting, continued engagement's a huge part of this. It's really important that we're sharing with the community the purpose behind this and that we're getting feedback from folks on what's working, what's not working, where they're experiencing issues. So really having a coordinated program to regularly get out in the community and get that feedback. Policy coordination and strategy. This is a lot of what Todd talked about, looking internally about how the city operates. Anyone who's ever worked in city government or actually any form of government probably knows that there's this tendency for departments to work sort of in silos. It's like, well, my department's role is this and your department's role is that. And yeah, we'll talk about things when we need to, but this is really looking at integrating our efforts as they relate to the transportation network and particularly street safety. And I've got to say, since we started this project a year ago, the working relationship we have with our partners and other departments has really, I think, notably transformed and changed. So we're just much more engaged every step of the way than we had been before that.
And just, I'm just going to skip to the last one because I know we're running short on time. The last one is about accountability. So making sure that everything the city does, we report back to the residents and track accountability to show that the steps we're taking on an annual basis is actually working towards achieving that goal. And if it's not, doubling back and seeing what needs to be changed. So each year we're going to release a Vision Zero, basically an accountability report that says, there was this many speed, reductions. What was the crash rate? Is it coming down? What steps did we take on specific roadways to improve safety across all the, whether it's systemic, design, policy, et cetera. So each year we'll be releasing this so City Council, the Mayor's Office, City Manager, the residents can hold us accountable and make sure that we're working towards achieving that goal.
And this is really looking at accountability in two ways. One is that is the city making the investments in these types of improvements that it said it would? It's one thing to put a plan together and say, hey, here's all the things we ought to do. But then is anyone following up year by year by year and saying, hey, did you actually go out and try those? So making sure that we're actually implementing them and then gauging the effectiveness of the things that we implemented.
So that's the real quick cliff notes on Vision Zero. All of this is available on our website, and there's actually a really cool story map that we developed where it'll walk you through the whole process with pictures and maps and graphs, and you can kind of see all the data, how it all came together, how all the community engagement came together, and then the final report.
The story map is the thing to check out if you want the Cliff's Notes version where you get 90% of the information. Yeah.
Yep. So it's worcesterma.gov / I think it's transportation.
If you go to the transportation page, you'll find it.
And then
Yeah,
it'll have everything.
Vision Zero.
It'll have the mobility action plan, it'll have Vision Zero, it'll have projects we're doing for pedestrian safety or bike projects or planning. It'll have information on parking enforcement, parking meter rates, everything.
I'll go ahead and share that with everyone. All right. Thank you so much. We're hoping for a couple of questions. We'll consolidate efforts and applaud. 2 questions.
So
That's a great question.
That's, yep. So that's a great question. Actually, we were discussing it down the hall about an hour and a half ago. So the 25 mile per hour rollout is a multi-phase rollout. The first thing after City Council did it was to meet our statutory obligations, and what that means is Mass DOT has required that you post it at the border of the entry points. So as you're driving in, you will see, speed limit 25 miles per hour citywide unless otherwise posted. That is the only thing that the state requires us to do to begin enforcing it. Now, we know there was a lot more that we wanted to do and need to do in order to communicate it, because again, not everyone's on social media. Not everyone leaves the city. I was surprised to hear that, but actually some people don't leave the city at all. So they would never see those signs. The next step we did and what we are still working on is there are literally 300 plus signs throughout the city that date back decades of that say 30 or thickly settled 30. There's not a record of where all those are. So we have been driving through, we did 2 things. One, we created a thing online that said, report one to us and let us know where they are. And the other thing is we've been driving through every street, noting down every single address where we see those signs.
Every way possible.
Yeah.
Like Google Street View, by car, you name it. We
are literally, and what we've been doing is we then put work orders into DPW, who's in charge of putting up or taking down signs. We have, I want to say about 100 work orders before them to go and take those signs down. So they're in the process of doing that. So we just got there was a comment tonight at Traffic and Parking that the signs on Mill Street, the 30s are finally down. To give you an idea, the DPW, I'm sure when they were here, they discussed the vacancies. If you want to work for the city, it's a great department. Their sign shop has 1 person in it right now, trying to do all signs as well as traffic signals. So he is working the best he can. We do have a private contractor doing it as well. But literally, we are now in the process of taking down 300 plus signs. And we know there's still going to be ones out there that we haven't even identified yet that will continue that process. So that's working. And the third part we're doing is public engagement, letting people know. So we have the lawn signs. We've been doing social media. We did radio shows. We put it in the newspaper. We're about to deploy, now that the winter weather is done, knock on wood, variable message boards that we're going to be moving around the city that say, hey, 25 mile per hour citywide in effect. And that's part of the communication part, to inform the public that not only is it 25, but it's now in effect. The police, for the past month, have been doing enforcement. Actually, about 2 months at this point, have been doing enforcement, but not ticketing. They've been giving away flyers, unless you were egregious. You're going to 55. They were giving you a ticket.
Yeah.
If you were going 30 or 35, they were giving a pamphlet that basically informed you that the speed limit is now 25, and here's why it's 25. Here's the safety reasons. Here's how it's in effect. So we're doing that as part of our public engagement, and now the police are moving towards enforcement. So now you're seeing them out there enforcing on those streets that still don't have the 30 plaques anymore, where they've come down. They're now out there enforcing the 25 mile per hour.
Just one real quick thing to add, though. So the statutory speed limit, this idea that this is a speed limit that applies citywide, we actually cannot sign those with the speed limit signs you're familiar with under state and federal law. So the white signs with the black lettering, it's the speed limit that applies when those signs don't exist. So you won't see a bunch of signs all over the white on black on white signs, except for at the city boundaries where there is an exemption that allows us to post those. You will start to see some yellow signs that say thickly settled 25 miles per hour as part of the next phasing of the sign rollout.
Yeah. So that's a long-winded answer to say it's an ongoing situation. Yes,
Yes.
yes. So on those streets that have what's called regulatory speeds, they're posted. That is the speed limit. So if you see a black and white that says 35 or 40, that is the legal speed limit on that roadway. If there's no sign on the roadway, it's the 25 statutory. That's how state law is.
It is frustrating. I mean, we are bound by some antiquated regulations that we don't necessarily agree with every step of how we have to implement this as well. It's gotten better. The regulations have been changed recently to make it a little bit better, and we're actually hopeful that at the end of the year there's going to be some other regulatory changes that are being talked about, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I will just point out, it's a speed limit. You don't have to go 45 because the sign says 45. Drive safe. Right here.
Quick question about unintended consequence. There really isn't anywhere for them to pull closer to the curb.
Yeah, so this is,
Or is that just account for their prevention?
so no, so I don't, I'll let you speak to Worcester's legality. I will say that in my experience before coming to Worcester, that is actually a common thing that you will see in New York, Chicago, Boston, Brookline. Yeah, well, not real cities, but just, that is something that, they'll carve out those spaces. And those drivers that drive around the region will see a very wide painted median out here and be like, oh, this is where they want me to pull up. But one of the benefits, as I sort of spoke about having DTM together, is that parking and curb management. So what we've been doing right now is going through, starting with the downtown and the Canal District, we're going through and looking at how all of the regulations are in place and seeing if they make sense. They've been there forever. Are there places that we need commercial loading zones? And can those commercial loading zones be in the morning and then revert to regular parking in the afternoon and the evenings to support the customers and the businesses so they can get their deliveries in the morning, and then in the afternoon and the evening, their customers can come. So we're going through and doing all of that. So that's sort of the benefit of having everybody under one roof. But I'll let you speak to whether that is.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's defined by law, but it is common here now and elsewhere. In fact, I know during the design process that the idea was that, hey, if there's not sufficient curb space for them, we know they'll go ahead and use that median area for that purpose.
That's going to be our last question. Just.
Yeah, so that's another part of that, another kind of loading zone we're looking at, what's called either passenger loading zone or food delivery. So you DoorDash, we all DoorDash, Uber Eats, et cetera. It's become a lot more popular since COVID. Looking at those businesses that, and working with, quite frankly, with the chamber and the local business groups to identify, so Canal District comes to mind. There's Kelly's Pizza and a couple other restaurants right there that rely on DoorDash all day, every day, as well as their own delivery. So we're actually working to create a specific loading zone that would be all day and evening for them to come park there and then go have a very short walk to whatever restaurant they're picking up from and being able to pull out. But again, it's all about, working together between the engineering, the curb management, and also the parking enforcement. Some of our best resources are our PCOs because they're out there every day interacting, and they're the ones identifying even before our business does. As we're seeing a ton of Ubers on this street, like we have to accommodate that because they're blocking the lane right now. And they're getting mad because we're writing tons of tickets, and can't you accommodate them because we don't want to write tickets.
All right. That was insightful. I love transportation and mobility. Thank you. So thank you all again for attending. This was our second to last session, which is wild to think about. I'm hoping to see you all in the next 2 weeks. Same room, same bat time, same bat place, same bat pizza. If you see an extra pizza and you're hungry, please take it home. I won't judge you. Help yourself to a cookie or two. Put it in your pocket. Also, I will be sending out a survey. Please complete the survey. I got 6 responses last time. Very sad about that. I'd love to hear more feedback. Thank you.